the non-dual absolute reality known as Brahman is the true and only nature of the self. There is therefore no one apart from it who could know it or be ignorant of it. For this reason, then, the truth is not something that can be discussed like a topic, even though that's all we speak about here. For this reason, again, the Maharshi and other sages as well, when questioned about the nature of truth, remain silent. In that silence, there is no I apart from the truth to know it or to be ignorant of it. In the absence of a separate individual or I, truth knows itself, God knows God. The self itself truly knows itself. Therefore, if you want to know the truth, if you want to know the Absolute, you must know yourself. Since the self is non-objective in nature, whatever is objective, not being yourself. Since your own self is non-objective, what is required for realization of the Absolute is self-knowledge, which is equally non-objective. That is, it is not a matter of you knowing about the truth or about the Absolute or about God. Rather, the light of your own innermost consciousness shines upon itself without anything objective whatsoever. It is simply a matter of being, your very being, reposing as it is. Well, then, how does being get to repose as it is? In truth, it ever is as it is, which is why we call it being. It is not a doing. That which is real always is, without variance, without change, without creation or destruction, without birth and without death. That which is really the self is as it always is, without change, without variance, without condition or phase, without creation or destruction, without birth and without death. So what is this being the self? It is just what is actually always the case. In spiritual practice, this knowing of the self manifests as a negation of misidentification. If only what you assume yourself to be is set aside as only so much delusion, the reality shines of its own. There remains no one left to be ignorant of it, nor anyone apart from it to grasp a knowledge of it. Rather, the thing in itself, reality, the knowledge, and the one who realizes it are identical. It is thus non-dual. So then, set aside from your identity everything that is not actually you. Be it the objects and circumstances, events and such of the manifest world, or your body, or the events of your mind called your thoughts. Set that aside as having nothing to do with your real nature, and see what remains. Inquire within yourself, who am I? Just as the Maharshi was always recommending. Do so deeply, giving up the objectivizing outlook. In other words, cease to regard what is objective as yourself, what is not yourself as yourself. The body is something you know. If you call it you or yours, you're just mistaken, that's all. What do you do when you find that you've made a mistake? You don't do that anymore. You give up the mistaken approach. In other words, you cease to regard the body as you or yours or your encapsulation or any other such definition in relation to you. If you are not the body, what are you? If you are not the body, what would define you and consequently confine you? If you are not the body, where is your beginning? Where is your end? Where is your location? What is your birth? What is your death? If you are not the body, can you be called active or still? If you are not the body, can you say, I do this, I don't do this? I am here, I am there. I am now, I am then. Still there is existence. Still there is the sense of I. From where does it come? Put the question to yourself, inquiring to know what your nature is, and give up that which is objective as having nothing to do with who you actually are. Attempt to determine what actually is your identity. Consider your thinking. Which thought or which pattern of thought is actually you? Whether that pattern of thought appears while your mind is waking or dreaming, which one is you? If a thought cannot be you, can a bunch of thoughts be you? Does more of not you make up for you? Inquire. Your thoughts are as objective to you as your sensations are. It's simply a mistake when we regard them as subjective. And what do you do when you find a mistake? You abandon it. If you are not thinking, and if you're not, or not the object of thought, for every thought has some form to it. There is no such thing as a formless thought. Every thought has an object or a form to it. It may not be a physical object. It could be an abstract object. If every thought is objective, and you are not what is objective, then who are you? What is that consciousness which knows thought, yet is not known by thought? If you are not thought, can you remember yourself? Can you forget yourself? If you cannot possibly be a thought, are you conceivable? If you are not thought, where is desire? Where is fear? If you are not thought, where is ignorance? If you are not thought, have you after all made a mistake at all? Inquire, know yourself. Who am I? The notion of I, the idea that you're an individual, is it you? If it is not with you all the time, such as when you're in deep, dreamless, thoughtless sleep, can it be you? You go on existing continuously. Can the assumption of I, that you're an individual entity of some kind, can that be you? If it is not you, then where is bondage? Where is liberation? Where is ignorance? Where is knowledge? The knowledge and the liberation are your own nature. Who becomes bound? Or who becomes ignorant to imagine himself as bound? No body, no mind, no I. Then no boundary, no time, no space. No bondage, no limitation. The formless, the non-dual, the forever undifferentiated. This alone is you. And being formless, thus boundaryless. Being undifferentiated, therefore with nothing apart. It is the sole existent reality. Though called that, can it be objective? Though known as the self, can it be an individual? A particular thing? The reality, which is the self, simply is as it is. It's not a topic for discussion, though it is the only thing we talk about here. If you have a question this morning, or you wish to relate your own experience, at any point, feel free to do so. Go ahead, Richard.
As I continue to discriminate, certainly I can see the mind is objective, then who am I? I can see this sense of the individual is objective, and ask, who am I? But as I start to look and examine closely what is my stand, which is what I've been doing most recently, I notice that regularly the stand is still as this body in this place at this time. I go back and continue to discriminate, and certainly the body is objective. After the last retreat, I'm also using where does the I arise? And again, it's very clear that the I does not rise in the body. You know, it's put there. The I does not rise in the senses. It's put there. The I doesn't rise in the perceiver of the senses. It's put there. But, you know, seeing all of those things in the discrimination, I still go by where my stand is still as this Richard that's sitting here. And I want very much for that stand to go away.
What would make a change?
How I hold myself. What I see is true, beyond the ideas that come to the mind through the discrimination.
So then the inquiry, whether expressed as from where does the I rise, or simply as who am I, cannot be just merely the intellectual recognition of such. The inquiry then is experiential knowledge. What you feel or experience as being yourself, or where you stand. That you get an intellectual comprehension first, that's fine, it's not a difficulty. But if we want liberation from the body, for example, from the bondage of thinking we're the body, we must really know ourselves. And for that purpose, there is spiritual practice. The real practice consists in the change of identity. Well, it's not really a change of your identity, it's a relinquishing of misidentification. For if we just stop short and say, I know I'm not the body, the senses, the mind, you've heard it here, you've read it in the Maharshi's teachings and Vedanta in general, and you have that thought, but you still feel, here I am, having this thought. As I said, that only, I wouldn't say it does no good, but it doesn't do the good you're looking for. What really matters is what you really consider to be your existence, to be your identity. Are you here now in a body? Exactly where in the body are you?
Of course, when here with you talking, and it's interesting exactly where in the body am I is an approach I haven't taken. It's amusing because as soon as you ask that, that one is, the answer is obvious, which is there is no part of the body that's me. So who am I?
Okay. We certainly cannot expect an objective answer. But if you remove what is erroneously thought of as being yourself, as no longer your stand, you'll see where you are. Not with the eyes, of course, not with your mind, but with something far deeper. Do you ever really become a body? Are you not a body in this room, but if you step downstairs, do you become one? You have known people who die. In fact, everyone eventually dies, yourself included. This is obvious. Is it the moment before death you're in this body and then a moment later you're somewhere else? If you are here and then again somewhere else, what is this thing that can be here, there, and in different places? Or looking more deeply, if later you are not in the body, and existence itself does not change, does not alter its attributes, which is why we call it existence and not an illusion, then where can it be now?
Certainly looking at my dead father-in-law's body a few days ago, it was clear that he was not his body.
Did he only recently become not a body? If we think so,
Right.
we will think in terms of life and death,
Of course.
usually grieve at death, but sometimes people are grieving during life as well.
It's over with beforehand.
If we look that way, we see dualistically, we see differentiation, then as the Upanishad says, then we go from death to death. Wherever he is now, is the same place where he was before. What you are before birth, what you are after death is the same as what you are now. The temporary appearance does not alter your existence. Look at it in the short term. When in deep sleep, there's no experience of a body. Now there seems in the waking state an experience of the body. Your mind has become active, there's an experience of the body. With discrimination, you can derive the appropriate conclusion regarding this. But certainly you can see that your existence has gone all through, with and without the body.
Certainly.
There was no idea of being here and now in deep sleep. Something that is so fragile as to be utterly vanquished just by going to sleep cannot be the abiding reality. You experience that every night, or just about every night.
I feel like I experience that all the time, except I experience that. We still have on top of that some of these other ideas.
All right. Then if that be the experience, look at it in terms of the substrate and that which is only appearing. And distinguish between the appearance and the substrate and what you feel you are. Right now, you feel you are. The same feeling was there many years ago, will be there in the future.
The same feeling has been there as I've reflected deeply. The same experience has been there from the earliest memory that I have. And there's not a bit of difference in that experience.
Exactly so. Even before memory, you did know you are. You've never known a time when you cease to exist. But you've known plenty of times when your body was not a factor in your experience, or just a part of your body was. Just go on reflecting very deeply over that. Become clear about what is the ongoing existence, which is the substrate, or what is merely a temporary or illusory appearance. Come to that knowledge and certainty. go on inquiring again and again until the old habit of delusion, of thinking you are that thing, you're in that thing, you possess that thing being the body. Until that has gone away, until that no longer binds you. To realize this, what simpler and more direct approach could there be than just inquiring, who am I? And proceeding by a direct path of knowledge. The knowledge that you can't possibly be the body. Since that is the state in which you wish to wind up, a state of knowledge that is standing by itself, self-supported, why not practice that? Is it clear for you how to proceed?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
With the misidentification with the body, for instance, if my foot, this body's foot is smashed with a hammer, I experience physical sensation, pain.
Mm-hmm.
But if somebody else's foot is smashed with a hammer, I don't experience physical sensation or the pain. Is it simply a misidentification with my own body that I don't feel somebody else's pain or another body's pain? I'm confused how this makes it feel like that I am the body, or not that I am the body, but that there is a connection to this body, that there's not a connection to somebody else's physical discomfort or pain.
Because of the misidentification with the senses. If you feel you are the senses or a sensing entity, you'll regard those sensations pertaining to that body as somehow pertaining to you, and then by some hop, skip, and a jump of logic, that the body is you. Last night, did you have any dreams?
Yes.
Okay, now maybe somebody got injured in your dream. Did you feel the pain? It was some other character? But when you woke up, where did the dream characters and their dream bodies go? Or again, who was making up or who was composing the entire dream? The bodies of the others were equally yours. In the dream, you selected one. You were actually all of them equally, or none of them. Just so now. You are, as the Gita says, the self dwelling in the hearts of all beings. And yet the very same Gita says, I am not in all beings. All beings are in me, yet they are not in me. I am all beings, yet I am not in them. And he wasn't just trying to confuse people.
Okay.
It wasn't self-contradictory statements.
So it is a misidentification with the senses then. The experience of pain being an individual sensation.
The pain will be there for that body and those senses if you smack your foot with a hammer as described by you. But what has that got to do with your nature? If you think that that is you, or that you are caught within it, you'll feel caught within that experience of pain, and then thereby suffer. If you're endowed with self-knowledge, you won't suffer. The body, the pain, etc., at the level of which we're speaking, will seem to occur, but there'll be no suffering. Just like right now you're not suffering due to the pains or pleasures that might still be going on for the dream character, if you regard him as still continuing now that you've awakened.
And likewise with a mental conception, or if there's a disagreement or misunderstanding with somebody and I feel anguish, or this is also in misconceptions. that I am the one feeling the anguish.
What
Actually,
constitutes the anguish?
well, if there was, a mistake that occurred by me, and somebody got upset, and then I felt bad, so I'm identifying once again with feeling this anguish as that is my nature. What I guess my question is how to, in the moment of all the emotion and everything that's happening, to how to deal with that in an inquiry and as a practice.
Well, you got two misconceptions there. One, the I who's caught up in the anguish, and two, the I that's the very core of that anguish. If both conceptions of that ego were gone, would there be anguish? In other words, you say, I have a disagreement, I did this, I made a mistake, then I have anguish. Who is the I in your statement?
My problem with that is that tends to, in my unclear practice of that, could turn that into a disavowalment of my own actions or actions that occurred through me.
Wouldn't do you any good. The law of karma would still hold sway, and you would experience the results of your actions. What we theorize about doesn't change the reality.
What I'm trying to say is to learn from an experience and not repeat the same mistake.
All right. How do you learn? How do you guarantee you don't repeat the same mistake?
That's my problem, is to keep repeating the same mistake.
So that's what you really have a problem with.
Yeah.
Not with the inquiry.
No. So the problem is that
Do the mistakes in your mind, let's look at it in terms of your mind. Do the mistakes in your mind just happen, or do you conjure them up? In other words, who's responsible for your own thinking?
me.
Okay, that was a real hard question.
Yeah. Well, I mean, do mistakes happen outside of? Yeah. Okay, I got you.
You answered your own question there. You're conjuring up your own thinking. Why do you think the way you think? Okay, the man who's caught up in total worldliness hardly notices that he's thinking. He just says, things are happening, these people are being disagreeable. If he does notice he's angry, let's say, he says, somebody else made me do it. As if somebody else could make us angry. Okay? A person who's more spiritually minded will notice that it's his own thinking. So he's noticing what's going on. But why are you thinking the way you're thinking?
Ignorance, misconceptions, repetitive behavior. That's
Why do you repeat something if you know it's a misconception? Or maybe you don't know that.
I don't catch it in time. I'm not sharp enough when I do something. I'm lazy.
Well, wait a minute. How sharp do you have to be? It's your thinking. It's not like it's somebody else's thinking.
Right. So.
Do objective circumstances, inclusive of the activities of other people, generate your thinking? Or does your thinking come from you?
Comes from me.
From what you regard as you.
Yeah.
So what you would regard as you would determine the way you think.
It just goes back to the core ignorant thought of my individual self.
And whatever definition you give to that individual self, since as the Maharishi points out, it's a ghost with no form of its own. So it feeds on forms in order to appear to survive.
I want to live more fully like that, where I don't, like you're saying, telling the other gentleman about, if on one level, I know I'm not the bottom, but yet that's only on a certain level. It's not on the deepest truth understanding level, living that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
Only what you actually experience should you regard as knowledge. Everything that's said here about knowledge is something that's non-conceptual in nature. And you approach it by your own interior experience as to what you actually feel you are. Merely to have the phrases about it, it's okay in terms of erudition, education, but it's not sufficient for self-realization. You must determine what you take yourself to be, why, and the who behind that why. So if you're noticing what you're thinking, and you take full responsibility for your own thinking, because that enables you to have full freedom, then you will find out why you think the way you think. You'll find that your thinking is generated from a point of some identity. It's not your body, that's inertness. It's not the self. That has neither thought nor body. That's just pure being, consciousness, bliss for all eternity. Something seems to be in between. Some definition. Yes, starting with the core notion of I, the root of it, and then whatever else is given as definition to it. Trace back your own thinking to those definitions. Then inquire, who am I? And erase the definitions. When you erase them, it will be as if they never were. How to suffer will become a lost memory for you.
That would be nice.
To do so, you have to apply yourself. You have to discern. Looking within yourself to know who you are. It is not difficult, but you do have to persevere with it. There's nothing really obstructing the knowledge of yourself, but you do have to be thorough and penetrating in the elimination of all that is not the self. No longer regard as knowing what is really just ignorance. Now, if you approach in this way, are you going to have any anxiety or anguish? The very root of suffering is going to be dissolved because it's unreal. What the inquiry is revealing is just the truth, just the reality of your own being. Nothing new is being created. Just that which really had no substance is being eliminated. Consider it like waking up out of a dream or the relinquishing of imagination. You don't want to live your life in imagination. When we see imagination as imagination, naturally, due to that which is innate, there'll be the desire, an intense desire, to find reality. Just as when you see what you were pursuing in the name of happiness was actually only causing suffering, there's innately a desire, an intense desire, to become happy, to secure your happiness. It's an innate desire because there is the intuition that happiness is your own being. Do you now know how to proceed?
Yes. Thank you.
This form of manifestation, we are all manifested, and in misconception or in the reality. So we can abide in that reality. And we serve in that reality when we are dedicated to that reality. Is that what is considered devotion or seva?
The highest seva, or selfless service, seva meaning service, is to abide in and as the reality with the ego gone. That is also the highest bhakti, parabhakti, supreme devotion, in which there is no more vibhakti, no more non-devotion. That means the individual ego has been evaporated. He has merged. Likewise, it is the supreme yoga, the Maha Yoga, the great yoga, in which there is no viyoga, no division. That is regarded as the highest yoga or highest union. The same as knowledge.
It is the independence and freedom synonymous.
What do you mean?
There is one of the impediment of pure devotion is claiming my own independence, for instance.
How can you have your own independence apart from the absolute? You stand up on your own by what power?
Yeah, by my sense of enjoyment or sense of misidentification. That's how I claim something that is false.
But when you claim something that's false, it doesn't make it real.
It doesn't make it real, but it postpones and it tint my pure intention as the Maha.
Okay.
Yeah.
So with that pure intention, eliminate as false that which is false. But God is never fractured.
No.
There's never a second power. The idea that there's a second power or another entity is known as a Maya illusion. The principal teaching of Advaita, non-duality, is Maya does not exist.
So what it is, the things that we miss is Maya, what we consider misrepresentation, misidentification, going astray.
Right, but that if it's misrepresentation, it's not what is really occurring. If it is an illusion, it's not the truth.
It says in the Bhagavad Gita, the self is identified by the eternal, and the Maya is another energy which is hard to overcome. It says in the Gita, this energy that is not real, that is part of me, the real, is hard to overcome.
As long as the one remains as an individual, it's nearly impossible to overcome. But if the ego is effaced, then we'll see if it's hard. Can it be hard for God?
Exactly. So it's by grace, by the grace of reality, that these not by effort, that is conquered.
Even if one applies efforts, it's the same nature as the grace.
I was reflecting on what you said about making mistakes. And what you do when you make a mistake is correct it or just stop it. So I was looking at who's making this mistake? And who's doing this misidentifying or even identifying? There's like some action going on. The self is not involved in action. The self doesn't need to take on identity. So I'm really kind of reflecting on what is this thing that I'm calling identity? What is that? And so I think sometimes, okay, I'm misidentified and I need to identify with something else. But that seems to be, that starts to fall apart when I inquire in kind of underneath that, or it's like, so it's kind of grappling with what is this process called identification, because we talk about that a lot. But at a deep level, there's no identification going on. There's nothing being, because identity at a certain level is like taking on another object. Now there may be a less material, less objective identity, but eventually at a certain point there's no identity going on.
That's why in the practice of self-knowledge, you're advised to relinquish misidentification, but not necessarily to conceive of another identity. You're not told to think you are that. You're told to find out who am I, and the truth behind Tattvamasi, that thou art, will become abundantly clear. It'll be self-evident. But you're not to go on thinking, I am that.
Yeah, I see, I have that. Sort of like, okay, it's a mistake, that's a bad identity, so let's go get a good identity.
You have to inquire as to who's doing either.
Exactly.
What's his identity? We're not talking about it as a topic.
Yeah.
That was also mentioned. It's not a topic. It's you. The mind is accustomed to deal with it. This is you. Deal with the I directly. Abandoning one identity, taking on another identity. Who would do either of these? Who is this one?
Yes.
Whoever, he's taken for granted in your question. Don't take him for granted.
Yeah. Yeah, and the question is sort of like, it's an unexamined part of the myth, and it lives on because it's unexamined.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a superstition or something then.
The ego I survives due to lack of inquiry and vanishes upon inquiry. It's a very simple thing.
So that it's so great how the inquiry works because you can keep there's always somebody. Well, I don't know. There
seems to be somebody there, but you claim not to know him. Isn't it a funny thing?
It is.
Everything in your whole life revolves around this I, and yet
you don't even know who
you don't know who he is. But how is it that you could not know who he is? How could you know anything else without knowing him?
It's like the star of the show, and you're not even finding out who it is. That's a funny way to go about things.
It's a very strange. That was what was being referred to as a mistake. Yes. How could we not know ourselves? Seeing the absurdity of that position, we inquire, who am I? We arrive at a conclusion that sounds like the beginning. How would it be possible not to know ourselves? We find it's not possible. In illusion, it seems to be the case. Later we find it's not the case at all. You have to go on questioning what this I is. It's at the root of all your perspectives, mental modes, thinking, etc. As long as the I is not known or thought of erroneously, everything streaming forth from it is equally delusive. If we then give it the stamp of reality, which is borrowed from our own being, such is illusion. And illusion then seems as if real. What is actually just delusion, we then give the stamp of reality from our own being and say, I know this. Whether it's about your so-called self or about something else. The I in the world. Even the notion of the Supreme. Hence the emphasis on Jagat Jiva Para, the individual, the world, the Supreme, in the Rupa Gita. How all three are an illusion. There is something real. But the only way you can know what is real is by knowing yourself. And once you know yourself, there's really nothing else to be known. So you don't want to continue with the misidentification. There is no need to try to produce a new identity or obtain a new identity or transform yourself from one identity to another. There is no need for that, nor is that really possible.
So it's inquiring to that one that keeps, who's trying to find that different identity, or who's trying to...
The one who's aware of this now, who is he? Why discuss truth or meditation as if it were a topic? Who are you? That is what is meant by turning the mind inward.
So this idea that sense activity or senses are an activity seems like this. Also, too, I've been meditating on how it's in my mind, but it seems like because I give it attention, it's sort of a mental function. In other words, if my mind is distracted on something else, but it's different than normal thoughts in that seems like I have more control over thoughts. Maybe that's totally false too. But like the sense of seeing, I see objects,
Mm-hmm.
and it seems like there's a certain non-volitional part of it.
All right. Volition is an activity of mind, isn't it? Or a mode of mind?
Okay. Can you explain
If there be no thought, can there be volition?
There can be pretty much.
You would have it or would not?
You wouldn't have volition if you had no thought, would you?
Okay. Well, if that be the case, then one mode of mind sometimes determines another mode of mind and sometimes does not. The causality may be true or not. It's insignificant. Sometimes you seem to have volition over your senses, sometimes not. For example, you seem to decide what you give attention to. Right now you're listening, so you're not paying too much attention to the tactile sensations. Now that I mention them, you're thinking of them, but you're not noticing your taste. Or scent or something else.
Definitely, the senses are very focused. It seems like, one's really active, or maybe two, and the others are totally...
And then the others are out of focus. So your mental attention is one of the factors determining your sensory experience. However, you're not determining everything you see or hear. You often hear things you don't want to hear, or see things you don't want to see, or taste things you don't want to taste. So that which is producing volition and your desire and aversion is not necessarily the determination of the phenomena or the senses, which is a good thing. It lends itself to a state of detachment. So one mode of mind, the volition, the decision, the desire, and so forth. Another mode of mind is what you call sensing. Different modes of the same mind. Now, what has this got to do with you?
Well, I guess, okay, for instance, the sense of seeing. Seems like there's a cognition of that sense perception.
And if you close your eyes right now, there's a cognition or an awareness of the cessation of that sensation.
Yeah.
So you have the senses coming and going. The cognition ability also rises and falls, such as in the three states of waking, dreaming, and sleeping.
Okay.
Thought and non-thought states. Waking state, faint, let's say, state. what is accidentally called being unconscious. So both the sensations and their objects and the mental cognition of them rise and fall. Something does not rise and fall. That which knows about the rising and falling does not itself rise and fall. And it is inseparable from your being. How then could you be the senses or anything sensed? Or how could you be the mental cognition which knows about those senses?
Seems like it always goes back to the mental aspect, right? Because it's like you said before, with an activity, a sense perception, somebody hits something, it requires that identification to occur, or that thinking somehow that sense in that body.
In order to suffer.
Is that?
In order to suffer, feel bound by it.
Yeah. And
All right.
I believe that you're those things, yeah.
But are you those things?
It seems like I'm really trying to, sort of like this meditation I had last Friday, really try to keep nailing these ideas about the body and the senses. The senses definitely seem tougher though, to me.
But it's worthwhile to be thorough in your inquiry. You're trying to do this, but you that's trying to do this can't possibly be the body or the senses, correct? It's not the body or the senses that's trying to nail this down.
Right, exactly.
What do you know about yourself already then?
That has nothing to do with it.
Since it has nothing to do with it, your success is assured.
Another neat thing is that retreat really, I feel like that gave me a deeper sense for what inquiry is about, I guess. And even that last meditation too, I felt like that was pretty cool, because I feel like somehow having that experience just gives me more confidence too. I can't, anytime I feel like I see or I question my identity, it seems like that sort of breaks apart the strength of it, I guess. I don't know.
The pseudo-strength of ignorance breaks apart by examining it, by inquiry. The strength of spiritual practice builds by more practice. If you want inquiry to be strong, you inquire. And since you mentioned the last retreat, the more you inundate yourself in the Maharshi's teachings, the better.
In the text, could I ask you to explain something? Just one. It's where it's from Atma Satsang. And where he says that you are that Shiva, but not not the power to create that birth. You're in essence one, but you're just not that power to create.
All right.
Yeah.
You have to look at it in context. Look at verse 57. This is Amasashakara,
Yeah.
direct experience or direct realization of the self. Verse 57 is becoming ethereal, space-like, and pure. That means unalloyed, not mixing your identity with anything. He merges in Shiva, meaning the yogi who so meditates. Synonymous with omniscience. That's the perfect consciousness. Contentment. You're content only in one place, your real self. Eternal consciousness, independence, meaning freedom from all the bondage, and eternal, undecaying, and infinite power. That's been stated as your nature. That is as of the self. Then later, he gives some, verses 58 and 59 are negation of what is no longer necessary for such a one abiding in the truth, who has such identity as Shiva, the infinite consciousness. Then he says in verse 60,
That's
drink of the nectar of Shiva knowledge, knowledge of that which is absolute, the auspicious, and conduct yourself as you please. This has been stated. Then he adds, you are the same as Shiva in immortality and purity, but not in the power to create, etc. So verse 60 deals with the apparent individual. The previous verses deal with your real nature. Then advice for the one who is so meditating with this text, advice is given. Drink of the nectar of Shiva knowledge. That's how you gain immortality, transcendent of the body and the mind and such. So you're being directed to have that knowledge pour into you. Conduct yourself as you please. This is not an advocation of being licentious in any sense. Conduct yourself as you please, meaning because he has in the previous verses 58 and 59 negated the various rules of conduct. If you're abiding at the very source of all this Satyam, Shivam, Sundaram, the true, the good, and the beautiful, you can expect that which is true and good and beautiful to be the very nature of the conduct. So, if a person is outward turned in mind and unruly, various regulations and rules are given according to traditions in order to help keep the mind turned inward and to keep the karma in line. However, if one is drinking this Shiva knowledge, you're going right to the very source. The rules are no longer necessary because you're abiding at the source of which those rules are but a faint reflection. Then he says, you are the same, but as a reminder, he just said, do as you please. Now a further reminder. You are the same as Shiva in immortality and purity, that is, as being, consciousness, bliss, but not in the power to create, etc., which deals with name and form. Of the 5 aspects associated with Shiva, being, consciousness, bliss, to which belong purity and immortality, are real. That which is name and form is the characteristic of illusion, or the unreal. So you don't have, you as an apparent embodied being do not have the power to create whole worlds like God, galaxies, etc. You don't have that. You don't even decide which way the electrons go around the atoms of your own body. You don't make a lot of decisions that way. You don't choose your birth, your death, etc. None of this kind of thing. You don't have that, apparently, that power. But you are the same in terms of immortality and purity, in terms of being and consciousness. However, if you identify with this Shiva knowledge as that being consciousness, and know that there is no other, Advaita, one without a second, then the verse is no longer applicable to you. There can be talk of power to create, etc., only if there has been a creation. If you find your identity with that which is unborn, the reality, then there has been no creation. This is advice to created beings, not for uncreated beings.
ईश्वरानुग्रहादेव पुमां सद्दैववासनां महद्भयपरित्राणात् विप्राणामुपजायते
Through the grace of God alone, the desire for non-duality arises in wise men to save them from great fear.
येनेदं पूरितं सर्वम् आत्मनेवात्मनात्मनि निराकारं कथं वन्दे ह्यभिन्नं शिवमव्ययम्.
How shall I salute the formless being, indivisible, auspicious, and immutable, who fills all this with his self, and also fills the self with his self?
पञ्चभूतात्मकं विश्वं मरीचिजलसन्निभं कस्याप्यहो नमस्कुर्याम् अहमेको निरञ्जनः.
The universe, composed of the 5 elements, is like water in a mirage. Oh, to whom shall I make obeisance? I, who am one and taintless.
आत्मैव केवलं सर्वं भेदाभेदो न विद्यते अस्ति नास्ति कथं ब्रूयां विस्मयः प्रतिभाति मे.
All is verily the absolute self. Distinction and non-distinction do not exist. How can I say it exists, it does not exist? I am filled with wonder.
वेदान्तसार सर्वस्वं ज्ञानं विज्ञानमेव च अहमात्मा निराकारः सर्वव्यापी स्वभावतः.
The essence and the whole of Vedanta is this knowledge, the supreme knowledge, that I am by nature the formless, all-pervasive self.
यो वै सर्वात्मको देवो निष्कलो गगनोपमः स्वभावनिर्मलः शुद्धः स एवाहं न संशयः.
There is no doubt that I am that God who is the self of all, pure, indivisible like the sky, naturally taintless.
अहमेवाव्ययोऽनन्तः शुद्धविज्ञानविग्रहः सुखं दुःखं न जानामि कथं कस्यापि वर्तते.
I indeed am immutable and infinite and of the form of pure intelligence. I do not know how or in relation to whom joy and sorrow exist.
न मानसं कर्म शुभाशुभं मे न कायिकं कर्म शुभाशुभं मे न वाचिकं कर्म शुभाशुभं मे ज्ञानामृतं शुद्धमतीन्द्रियोऽहम्.
I have no mental activity, good or bad. I have no bodily function, good or bad. I have no verbal action, good or bad. I am the nectar of knowledge, beyond the senses, pure.
मनो वै गगनाकारं मनो वै सर्वतोमुखं मनोतीतं मनः सर्वं न मनः परमार्थतः.
The mind indeed is of the form of space. The mind indeed is omnifaced. The mind is the past. The mind is all. But in reality there is no mind.
अहमेकमिदं सर्वं व्योमातीतं निरन्तरं पश्यामि कथमात्मानं प्रत्यक्षं वा तिरोहितम्.
I, the one only, am all this, beyond space and continuous. How can I see the self as visible or hidden?
त्वमेव मेकं हि कथं न बुध्यसे समं हि सर्वेषु विमृष्टमव्ययम् सदोदितोऽसि त्वमखण्डितप्रभो दिवा च नक्तं च कथं हि मन्यसे.
Thus you are one. Why then do you not understand that you are the unchangeable one, equally perceived in all? O Mighty One, how can you, who are ever shining, unrestricted, think of day and night?
आत्मानं सततं विद्धि सर्वत्रैकं निरन्तरम् अहं ध्याता परं ध्येयम् अखण्डं खण्ड्यते कथम्.
Know the self always to be everywhere, one and unintercepted. I am the meditator and the highest object of meditation. Why do you divide why do you divide the indivisible?